welcome back to BroPartisan Hacks. Happy New Year, everybody. It is now 2022. And hopefully
Hooray!
we'll get at least 50 shows this year. Maybe 40 once a week.
That'd be pretty amazing.
That would be pretty cool.
Pretty good.
But it's good to see you. Did you have a good New Year's?
I did. Like I was telling you earlier, I nearly died last night.
Almost killed yourself last night just hanging
so-
out near the fire pit.
So my wife got me a new fire pit for Christmas. I sent you some pictures. It's really cool. Solo stove. Not a sponsor, but it's yet. But they it's supposed to be like a less smoky fire, and it's legit. Like it is hot. It has so much fire. It's crazy. However, I stood over this fire because it went from 70 at 9 o'clock in the morning when I left to go teach driver's ed to when I got home at 5, it was about 40. And then by the time we went to bed last night, it was like 20. So it's like 20 something degrees outside right now. It's freaking cold. So I'm literally standing over the fire because she got me this cool thing, and it's been 70, 80 degrees since Christmas. And so finally I was like, I get to do the fire. And so I'm I'm sitting there and I'm feeding the kids, and all of a sudden I was like, and I was like, there's something wrong with me. I don't know what's going on. There's something wrong. And
There's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay.
Started getting the kids ready for bed, and I'm like, I gotta go lay down. So I go and I just hit the floor, right? And this is like, have you ever done? Have you ever done morphine, or have you ever had morphine or oxycontins or anything like that, like serious pain medication?
The most recent thing was when I had the little head surgery, and they did a full body anesthetic, general. I was out, right? And I remember I came out of it, and there was nobody in the room, and I really had to piss, and I was too proud to use the bedpan.
Mm-hmm.
So I grab hold of the thing next to me, and I just fucking get up and go to the bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt unstable. Is the best way I could say that.
Yeah.
And so when I get done in the restroom, the nurse is coming in. I'm in the gown, right? And she's like, "Oh my god, what are you doing out of bed?" And then here comes my wife. "Oh my god, what are you doing out of bed? You big dummy! You're gonna fall down and hurt yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, I almost did. Legit." So that's about as close as I've come to.
So it was a lot like that. So, my oxy story is it's kind of funny, but I'm not gonna tell you. But if I was sitting still, I was fine. But if I got up, started feeling like I was gonna throw up. Started feeling like I was like, so of course I'm like, okay, let me go to WebMD and see what carbon monoxide poisoning does to you. And they're like, go to the hospital right now. I'm like, my copay is really high. I don't want to go to the hospital. Basically the treatment is breathe clean air.
Yeah.
So, I'm just sitting in my chair, just and hoping that the candles getting blown out isn't going to make it worse. So anyway, I'm alive. I'm good.
It's good. It's good. It's glad you're here with us. Not comatose
Not
and busted your
dead.
head open. Um,
So yeah,
well, let's see. What it's a brand new year. What predictions do you have for 2022, if even any? Is it going to be like 2020 all over again? It says it's 2022.
I mean, the the Republicans are gonna take back the Congress. We're gonna get wrecked. Um,
You think it'll
uh,
just be Congress? I mean, there's enough Senate seats up for grab too. Is it going to be both chambers?
Congress is both, right? We have the House, we have the Senate. They make up Congress.
Okay, that's how you're using it. All
The
right.
House of Representatives and the Senate are they're Congress people, right? Is that not right? Is that I've always thought
Congress
that.
people are only really so like you'd say like Congressperson Ocasio-Cortez, but you would say Senator Warren, right? Or Senator Cruz. So a lot of times they're used differently. But if you're talking about like congressional, whatever, most of the time it refers to the House. I'm pretty sure. But in the context you're saying they're going to lose both. That was my
Yeah,
question. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, that's my bad. I didn't know. Like seriously,
I,
I always thought that the whole because you have the senators,
representative houses to
yeah,
both chambers. Yeah.
and then the House of Representatives, that was Congress. Man, I
Maybe
feel
it is.
dumb
Well,
right now.
you
Really,
it
like I
is it
didn't know.
is because you have joint sessions of Congress, right? And that would
Yeah.
be so you're correct. But most of the time, Congress people refers to the House. Most of the time, it is both. Technically, you're right. Um, but
Wow.
you answered my question. So you think that they're going to lose Senate races enough to lose both the Senate and the House, and lots of local elections too, or
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I know that my side is gearing up for local elections. They are going to try and win a lot of local elections. Because we have kind of discovered that, um, based on what the Republicans have done, is as you start to win locally, and that's how you can affect real change. You look at some of the things that the changes that have been made so far. Like John Deere, Kellogg's, etc. Some of these strikes that are actually having an impact on real lives and things like that, and they're starting locally,
Mm.
which is kind of how Republicans have run things and gerrymandered things, and how they have maintained any amount of control at all. Because if I'm being 100% honest, um, well, it's not. I mean, it's not honesty. It's just fact. Is that in reality, more people are liberal than are conservative, or more people are Democrats than are Republican. Um, but because of gerrymandering, because of how things have worked at the local and state level, um, Republicans still have a chance.
Mm.
Because if you didn't have those things, your side would never fucking win. Um, so I think that's going to change, because you're a minority. If I'm being honest, the conservative body is a minority in America. Like, you haven't won a popular vote since fucking Herbert Walker. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, that's just fact. So, the Republicans have maintained control based on what they've done at the local and state level, and that's how they've had any power at all. And so I think some of the real lefties, not just Democrats, because Democrats only care about like power at the national level. Well, like left people are trying to do some more grassroots stuff locally, trying to get involved in their community.
I was just
Try
going
to
to
do.
point this out too. It's not just the left and the right. So this is one Houston district. You notice it goes through what is this, like Woodlands, Tomball, some of the rich parts of Katy with the energy corridor over here. Like I know this district, right? Like I live somewhere over here. This is one of the districts in California, right? So
Oh yeah.
Illinois, there's another one. Parts of Chicago, right? Like what is this, right? So
Is Illinois blue, like as a whole? Because really, like, have you ever been to Illinois?
Illinois is like
Like
Chicago
not
and then
not
everywhere else.
Chicago,
No,
but
no, no.
like
That's what I'm saying.
Illinois.
Illinois is red, and then there's Chicago, which is like 70% of the population of Illinois. So Illinois as a state, I believe, has Democratic senators and a Democratic governor, along with lots of red representatives out in the boonies outside of Chicago, and then, but Chicago runs Illinois politics. Like you can't deny that because it's really the only thing that's there.
There.
You know.
Yeah, it is. Boy, even like reasonable sized towns, but like even I've actually never been to Milwaukee, but I did go to Madison in Wisconsin. Um, the airport in Madison, Wisconsin, was like the size of um, I don't know the airport in like a very small town. Like I don't even know how to describe it. It was really really small, like in Joplin, Missouri.
No.
Like it's the same size as I'm like, this is the capital. Like why is this so small?
No.
Well, because the industry is in Milwaukee, not in Madison. Like so,
How
where
do
the
you
jobs are, that's where people are, I guess.
how do you fix gerrymandering, right? Like
Well, it has to be.
we
The
give the
thing is,
power to Congress, the state Congress, because each states are responsible for drawing their own district lines, and we say, okay, every 2 years, I think it is, they have to like redraw the map, right, based on population growth or whatever. It's supposed to be based on population growth, and tend to be able to, make sure that basically all the districts maintain the same size. The screwy part is where you get people in power and they want to maintain their position, and so they redraw the map in such a way they think is going to favor them, right? Well, these demographics here typically vote blue or red, and so we're going to draw the map like this. We're going to cut these people out, and we're going to put them over here in this district that's already blue, and we're just going to include this so we don't lose a seat by, the neighborhood changes or whatever, And so then you get screwy shit like this, right? Where downtown Houston is no longer red, and they've basically said, okay, we're going to take all the outside of Houston up to the county line over here, And
so here's what it's hard to explain because my school district a while back we had there's it's a multiple high school district, right? There's 10-15 junior highs, there's 40 something elementary schools, and they all kind of feed up, and they all, like, it just depending on where you were going to school is where you went to middle school, and then where you went to high school, so forth and so on, is based on how you live, right? And it was weird. Like, it was like we had people across town that would come to our school that like passed 3 middle schools to get to our school, and then we had people over here. Like, it was just screwy, right? And I never could figure it out. And then basically what happened was the old superintendent got retired or whatever, and then a new person came in. And then that person looked at the district and was like, this is stupid. I'm going to change this. And so he basically said, look, if you live here and these things, you're going to go to this middle school. If you go to this middle school, you're going to go to this high school. That's how it's going to go. And so you built like true what's called feeder patterns, where, from the elementary that you go to, from the beginning that you're going to end up at this particular high school. And so you are, wampus cats from the day that you start school to the day you finish. You know what I mean? Like,
assuming you don't move or whatever other.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you knew when you were in middle school, you were a field mouse or whatever it was. Like,
it's a very threatening mascot.
I actually don't remember what your mascot was because you went to a different high school than I did.
But we were the Broncos.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And they used to spell it because you have some old memorabilia from like the 60s and 70s where they spelled it Bronchos. Bronchos.
The Bronchos?
Bronchos, yes. The Bronchos back in the day. We found some of those in the field house that were like, Jesus, how long have these been sitting here unwashed? So, we definitely, but, we were like, Coach, we're all going to get black mold. We're all gonna die. Help! Sweaty gym socks from the 70s.
Or just staff brewing, stewing in your
stanking it up in like some forgotten closet in the field house. Yeah. So we found those.
There are a couple of times where we didn't do a load of laundry, like because we're supposed to, as coaches, we're supposed to do laundry every day, right?
Every day. Yeah.
Like sometimes we didn't get around to it. And so we just throw that load into the dryer with the other clothes and we're like, all right, let's just hope nobody gets staph. Here we go. Come on. Like, just serving up hot staph, everyone. Here we go.
Serving up hot staph. Wash it and dry it on high.
So my point is that basically what was happening was people wanted certain schools in the district to be good at sports, certain schools to be this, certain schools to be that. They wanted this school to be more majority well-to-do, and then they wanted some, other schools to be, they were fine, right? So like some of the richer neighborhoods, they want to go into a certain school within the district. And so the new person came in, he was like, fuck all that, we're not going to do that. We're going to go, and it's going to make sense geographically. Mm-hmm. And so he just said, boom, drew it up, drew the lines. This is how it's going to be. Sorry about you. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of what I think has to happen. Is basically, it has to be like somebody who's non-biased has to redraw the lines. Somebody who doesn't have skin in the game, because the old guard of our school district basically was like, we want this school to be this way, we want this school to be good at baseball, we want this school to be good at football, we want these kids going to this school, and the new super said, we're not going to do that. So, but because he wasn't part of old, good old boy, this is how this is how it's always been. Mm-hmm. So he was just like, it changed, and it actually has been great. Like, honestly, like, it's been fantastic since that for my school. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my point is, that's how you fix it. Honestly, is non-biased, draw it up geographically. I don't, and just let people vote. Speaking of geographically, if I get another mailer from my Republican ass congressperson, I'm gonna lose my mind. How do I opt out of that? Like, I don't want anything in my mail from that piece of turd.
I don't think you can opt out of that.
I don't.
you're just gonna receive mail. It's not like your mail email box where you can have like a block feed or whatever.
That's
I
what I'm
don't think the
saying.
post office has a
I can't
block
do that with the post office.
spam button you can push. I don't know. Like maybe there's some obscure rule or law that says like I'm exempt from political mailers, but I don't think so.
He's like every time I get one, I'm like, who's gonna run against him? Because I'm ready to go to work. I'll make some calls,
They're gonna
even
take your
though
cheeseburgers.
even though I really there's nothing really honestly that I hate more than talking on the phone, like talking to a person on the phone. Like I can text all day, but like talking to someone, like
Yeah, because you have
you
to
know
like
how
be
when
focused and like you can't do anything else. Like you just sit
so
there like, hello, yes.
when you were here, I had to make two different phone calls, right? And I don't know if you noticed, but that was the last resort. What I was gonna do. It's like I'm going to do everything else before I make any phone calls
And
at
you
all.
you ripped the Wi-Fi box out of the wall and put it all back together, and then you were like, shit, I have to call. Like I'm gonna go through all of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. And then they're like, "Okay, so I want you to do this." I'm like, "No, I've already done all that. I've already done it. I've already done that. I've already done that, and I've already done that." Like, I don't think you understand that I hate calling AT&T. So I just need you to fix it. Like, I've already done all the things.
Yeah,
Um,
I life hack. Ask for tier two. Say I've already done
what?
everything in your script. I need tier two.
Uh, that is really?
It
That's the thing?
usually works for me. Yeah. It's just
Huh.
like, look, dude, I'm an engineer. I know what I'm doing. I've done everything in your script. I need tier two support because everything that you're going to tell me isn't going to work.
Mm.
Tier two, please. Transfer me up.
Hmm. Nice. Nice.
Um,
Well, the chucklehead that I talked to about my smoker, God, he was dumb. I know you overheard that conversation. You were here.
yeah. Yeah. He's like, oh, your burners? And you're like, no, the smoker. And he's like, so the burners. I'm going to send you burner parts. It's the igniter. And you're like, no, chucklehead. It's the it's the electrical thing in the wire. All right, so next
Okay,
on our
moving on.
list, let's move on. Next on our list, you had Joe Manchin is a POS, and the Build Back Better bill is dead. Did they actually hold a
Yeah,
vote?
so no,
Oh,
he just
okay.
basically came out and said, "I'm not voting for it no matter what."
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you had any amount of brain, you knew that was going to happen. You knew that was going to happen as soon as Jayapal and all those folks went ahead and voted for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Like you knew that was going to happen. At least I did because I'm not a dumb. Um, and it just took it was a matter of time. So now um, Joe Biden looks stupid. Jayapal and her crew look stupid.
And
There
what
were
was Jayapal saying? What was going on there? I didn't follow too closely.
well, she was like, all of her job as the head of the progressive caucus in the House of Representatives um, is to basically whip those votes, and that's what she did. So she got all 19 more progressives, quote unquote, to vote for the infrastructure bill, and there were only like six that didn't because they knew that Manchin was full of shit. But Manchin was basically saying, "No, we'll negotiate, we'll work it out. I promise. We just need to get this done." Blah 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 blah. And then now look what happened. He killed it, and at the end of the day, the messed up thing about it, they had worked it down to it wasn't that much more than what Congress spends on the yearly budget anyway. Like it's only like a few billion more. Um, but it was
I love
like
how we can say words like a few billion more, and it like not mean anything. Like it's only a few extra $1 billion, maybe a couple hundred billion. It's not much,
oh, we almost
right?
we almost spend $1 trillion a year on defense. Like
No,
I don't
yeah, it's like
know.
what
I mean,
718 billion. I think was the last number I sent you, or something like that.
788.
Yeah, something like that.
788.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's
No,
it's
I
it's
get it.
made up numbers. I'm telling you.
I
Like,
get it.
have you ever seen
Right.
any of those graphs where it's like, this is the difference between a billion and a million, and you're like, million, it's like billion, and then you're
And then there's a
talking about,
trillion above that,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
and
So
now you're talking about 100 billion. You're just 100 billion. Like, and then this is what I always think about. Like, $10,000 would significantly help my existence, right? Like, if I just got a check for 10 grand, that helps me move on down the road, right?
mhm.
Significantly. Like, it's that I can put some away, I can pay off some debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're talking about a millionaire, billionaire in particular. They spend $10,000 on a hotel room at night, like for one night, like on a super duper hotel. Like, it
Yeah.
ain't shit. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
I don't know.
$200,000 to fly into space? Yes. Whatever.
That's what I'm
Cool.
saying. Like, done.
I make
That's like
$1
$200
million every day. What do I care? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's still funny. Then the other memes that I've seen that are like, if you worked from age 18 to age 65 for 47 years and you make $1 million a day, you still don't have as much money as Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Like, you're still not even close. Like, not even close. I'm sorry, not $1 million a day, $1 million an hour. If you make $1 million an hour for 47 years.
I think Amazon pulls in $1 million every like 13 seconds or something ridiculous like that. Like it's I saw a number about it. It was really dumb.
I'm not gonna lie, my hypocritical ass shops Amazon all the time. It's very convenient. I can't even, like, I am a straight up hypocrite when it comes to Amazon because fuck him, but still it's very convenient to shop. Like, I don't know what
you know one thing we are very aware of. I know we were shopping for a new vacuum cleaner. You can see this nice machine behind me, and this is, I don't know, a year ago or more, and we were looking on Amazon, and everything was was like this. It was okay. So it was all the same model, right? From China, but they all had different manufacturing names. And we could not find. We had to go to like page 35 before we found a different model of vacuum cleaner. It was ridiculous, right? And so we were having to search like specific brand names to like try and find something that wasn't the exact same crappy model of Chinese hand vacuum, right? They would be like, this is from Shibadaba Company, and then the other one's from Shibagawa Company, and the other one's from, they were all the same, JSW Company, and they were like, one's blue, one's red, one's purple, and they were all exactly the same model with different manufacturers. It was infuriating. So I heard that they're going to try and start getting away from some of that, and like whether or not that means upgrading their algorithms for posted material to make sure, like, oh no, these are exactly the same models, there's only one manufacturer of these.
Yeah. Or
and try to eliminate some of the bought or paid for reviews that are coming from those companies, because like a lot of those things have like these, the Chinese company puts out some crappy product and then they flood it with like positive reviews on there so that people start like, oh, this is actually a good product, when it's really a piece of crap. So
interesting.
I know we encountered that vacuum shopping a year ago, and so every now and like anytime we're on Amazon, we're like, all right, we need the not crappy Chinese products. What are we looking for here? Like,
what brand did you end up getting?
I don't know. I think it's a Shark. Yeah, it's a Shark. Shark Duo something.
We've been buying Dysons.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's crappy Chinese product or not, but
it's not. Dyson is I think it's an American product, or at least it used. I mean, it was originally.
They're pretty good. Like specifically Dyson, like their products, because we've found over the years that they're pretty good.
So what we're talking about.
So anyway, we were talking about Manchin.
We were talking about Manchin. Yeah, I was gonna bring it back in, and
But like, and I don't know if you ever saw it, but Bernie went on Jake Tapper's show and went smooth off on Joe Manchin. Basically called him a crook, called him a criminal. Like said all the things. Like he's bought and paid for. His daughter owns a coal company. Like, of course he doesn't want green energy. He owns coal. So why would he ever want anything different?
I mean, isn't he from like West Virginia?
Yeah,
that's what they do. That's of course the guy from West Virginia is not going to vote to put his constituents out of office, because then he would be out of a job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the banking on a guy who's from West Virginia to kill coal was a bad idea.
You ever been to West Virginia?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've driven through it. Nobody goes to West
Virginia.
I've
actually spent time in West Virginia.
Okay, nobody goes to West Virginia to spend time there except you. Let me rephrase that.
I have spent time in West Virginia. And the funniest story, I'll come back around, but the funniest story that I have is we were in West Virginia, and we met this guy, and he's like, hey, my band is playing over at this bar, right?
And of course he talks like that too, because he's from West Virginia, the Appalachian Mountains, and
he's down in, he's like, we're gonna go around, Ewan's want to go over to, my band's playing, so I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds fun. So he comes and scoops us up. And he's got moonshine. Of course he has moonshine. Of course
I was going to say, of course he has his own still. Yeah. Because that's the only other export that West Virginia has.
So he, and he takes us off into the hollers, which I think translates to the hollows, which is like the valley of the mountains, right? I think that's what that means.
That makes sense logically, yes, but...
So it takes us down into the hollers, and I'm talking about like
you're in Deliverance.
I just seen Wrong Turn.
Yeah, you're in Deliverance, and
yeah. So I just seen the movie Wrong Turn, and I'm like, dude, if you are taking us down here to kill us, I'm sorry for any offense that we have caused. Like we're kind of getting off the beaten path here. And so we wind all the way around and, up and down and up to this bar. And it was like, it's like the movie scene where the people walk in and the music stops and everybody turns and looks. And that was us, right? Because we're the outsiders. Obviously, we don't belong at this bar in the middle of the hollows of West Virginia.
You weren't wearing your overalls?
Or not.
Shirtless overalls with a straw hat.
I mean, we were dressed like uptown people, like
car salesmen.
Yeah, we were not dressed like West Virginians.
Right.
So we, we sit down, we have a drink, and everything's fine. But it was wild. It was wild. So anyway, While selling cars in West Virginia, I'm here to tell you this was 15 years ago. 60-some% of my customers were out of work. They were on Social Security. They were on some type of government benefits because mines have been shut down. This is 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Or the mines had cut back on their labor. For whatever reason, they were not doing well.
Mm.
Lots of toothless people, like, I'm just being real. Like, in a lot of senses, the stereotype was true. Like, there's a reason for the West Virginia stereotype. Like, people are not doing well. And again, this is 15 years ago, and things have gotten worse. Like, it's not great having to rely on those coal plants or the coal mines, because a lot of that stuff, they're just blowing the side of the mountain up anyway, stripping it down. Now, in my opinion, is coal dead? Probably. Honestly, like, it's a dying industry. Like, and we've had the nuclear conversation before, but I think that's we have to start coming up with different ideas and things to do and other ways to get energy. We can't keep going back to the same thing. Now, you can say any conversation about clean energy without nuclear energy is a bad idea, and that's fine, but we still have to start looking for ways to have renewable energy or have different sources, different ways to get that stuff.
And I never
invest
said
money in that.
I never said we should invest money and we shouldn't research it, right?
But in order to research, you have to invest in it,
right?
You can't.
However, you always talk about, like, government subsidies to energy companies. A lot of those subsidies, and I won't say the vast majority because I don't know the numbers off my head, but I know they get research subsidies and research grants. Like Exxon, Shell, the oil companies get research money from the federal government to do that, and it all goes into that same, like, subsidies pot, right? But like, we're paying for that. Like, we're doing that. Now, is there incentive for these companies to really hurt their bread and butter? Is it the best avenue for those research dollars to go? I don't know. Maybe that's not the right answer, But
obviously, I don't think the giving the oil companies money to research how to get away from oil is the best use of our dollar. No.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. Right. That's not the best use of the dollar. But like I've told you before, the idea that, like, current technology and solar power and current technology and wind power, those two elements are like the big thing, right? They cannot, like, a single wind turbine cannot reproduce its value in energy production to overcome the cost of its own manufacture, right? That wind turbine would have to run for like 150 years to offset the cost of its manufacture and placement and everything else that goes into placing a wind turbine in the ground somewhere, because they don't produce enough energy to offset that cost of production yet. Sure, right? But, like, the way that we generate power, right, is literally just a magnetic, like a coil of wires around a metal core, and we force this piece of metal to turn in a magnetic coil, and that generates a magnetic force, and that's what creates a current that generates electricity. So however you can get this little shaft to spin in this magnetic coil, or in this conductive coil, it's not magnetic, it's conductive, and the act of spinning this shaft creates a current in the conductive coil. Like, however we can do that, that's how we generate power. That's how every generator works, right?
Right.
Period. The end. It's all based upon that principle, and until we can figure out how to make it either generate more power through less resistance, or we find a new way that we replace this technology, right? the little spinning shaft in a conductive coil. I don't think that wind or solar are ever going to be able to do something like that. Right now, solar is a little bit differently. That's photovoltaic cells that absorb sun energy and they generate a current based upon like dissimilar metals and whatever other shit. I don't really fully understand that one. But that's like, I think it's like 50% more efficient in the last 10 years, like photovoltaic cells and solar panels. But they're still like the most toxic things on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And they don't last forever. And they're still, you know, they can't generate enough power to overcome the cost of their production. And then you're left with like the most toxic thing and these heavy metals that have to be put somewhere, right? Like if you were to tear down a structure, knock down a structure that has asbestos in it, the whole thing now has asbestos, right? It's the same thing with like solar panels. Like if you have solar panels on the roof and you were to knock the whole thing down, now that whole structure is toxic, and it all has to be treated as like toxic waste. So, you know, the idea that these technologies are what we're pushing, no, I'm out. I'm not convinced. I'm not sold on that idea. I think it's going to have to be something completely different. And, you know, you talk about new technologies and everything else. Like, there's interesting things with, like, Ireland has been doing it for, like, 20 years now, where they've been trying to generate power based off of waves off the shoreline. And they're actually using the motion of the ocean through, like, a series of buoys, right, to get that. But, I mean, that's almost worse than wind power as far as its reliability, you know? Because if the tide goes out, like, you generate less power there in that period than when the tide's in, because not all the buoys are rocking. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that like scientists are doing in the energy generation field that you know. But there's a lot of stuff that like is out there that's mainstream. That's just it's talking points, and it doesn't really solve the problem, right? You know, it's one thing to say like coal is on its way out. Sure, okay, yes, I agree. Coal is on its way out. Gas turbines are I think 70% of the power generation in the state of Texas, right? They're natural gas turbines. They take the shale gas or whatever else we got, and they burn it to make the shaft turn. It's the same thing, mm-hmm. right? And you know, the more force you can put on that shaft, then the stronger the magnetic field that's generated within the coils, and then the more current you're going to get out of it, right? So you can put a lot more force because there's a lot more potential energy in the gas than there is in like a 30-mile-an-hour wind out in West Texas. And then you have the 70-mile-an-hour winds that hit West Texas, and you got to brake those things. You got to have brakes on those wind turbines. I love watching those videos of the wind turbines with the brakes failed. Those things just completely explode, right? The wind turbine gets up to spinning at like 300, RPMs, and those shaft blades are like 150 feet long. They're coming apart. Like, it's pretty impressive to watch. So, from that perspective, I don't think that the Build Back Better bill was going to achieve its goals anyway, right? They had research dollars towards wind and solar and other renewables, right? But there was nothing really specific. And so what happens is all the research fellows who want that sweet, sweet government dollar are saying like, hey, we're going to use our keywords for wind and solar power to get that money, but that's not the answer that we really need. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But how do you invest in new technology without investing?
I would look at the colleges. Honestly, I would look at universities. I would explore investing in doctoral PhD projects at the university level, and PhD students with new ideas. And I would get that money out of corporate hands. That's what I would do.
That's probably the best idea because they're still pretty altruistic at the college level.
Yeah.
Not really.
And you're gonna have some little, like here's the crazy thing is like every famous physicist and famous mathematician. I use that term loosely, right? Because most people don't know famous mathematicians, but
yeah,
every one of them whose names wrote their best work before they were 35.
Yeah, while we're in college.
It was Einstein, Hawking, deGrasse, Sagan. They all wrote their most famous works before they were the age of 35. It's the younger physicists that have changed the world, right? They're the altruistic ones.
That's true.
And they're the ones who are going to figure out something new. And that's where you put your money.
Yeah. I'm with that. All right, well, let's do it. I have a quote pulled up here. This is kind of funny. Actually, never mind. It's silly. It was Scar didn't really try to kill Simba. All he did was give a speech to his supporters about starting a stampede in Simba's direction, and the hyenas made their own choices. He condemned them afterwards. So, clearly, not his fault.
Clearly not his fault. Scar did nothing wrong.
Scar did nothing wrong.
Hashtag Scar did nothing wrong. I feel a 4chan campaign coming on. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really funny.
That's pretty good. We had on here to talk about. So all that's with the Build Back Better plan, and that's dead in the water now. What is the administration's next step? Are they just going to flounder like a fish for the next 2 years?
So hopefully, there are some things that I know Bernie Sanders is introducing, some individual bills that he's going to introduce to try and get passed within this next year. Mm-hmm. I know that he's going to try and do some Medicare expansion stuff. Because that shit's really popular. So the more popular things that if you can take away from the reconciliation, like the reality is you don't have, there's no Republican that's going to go vote for it anyway, right? Let's look at, I mean, you can look at anything like vaccinations in particular. Like when Trump was in office, he gave the green light to go, what was I don't remember what the term was, but to go light speed,
Operation Warp Speed.
That's it. Yeah. So, and then every Republican was on board with the vaccination stuff, and now they're not because it's Biden's in control. So you're not going to get any Republican support because that's not how they roll. They're not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the bill is.
I gotta put this out there. Did you see that he came out the other day and was like, everyone should get vaccinated?
I did, and I heard he got booed at his own rally, and I haven't watched it yet. I've been meaning to go and watch it, and I haven't seen it yet. But yes, I did see that had happened. That I read there was like a big deal. Like Trump gets booed at his own rally on the vaccination stuff. Which good for him, Trump's gonna do Trump. That's one thing I will give him about himself is he's gonna do him and fuck what y'all talking about. Like he's just but anyway, so some of the more popular things in the Build Back Better, vision and dental for Medicare, Medicaid recipients, prescription plan for Medicare, Medicaid recipients. Now, those are things that Sinema and Manchin have both been paid off for via the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry. But I still think the vision and dental can go through because that's like 70% popular through America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the universal pre-K. I don't know if we've talked about that on the show about how they screwed that whole plan over. And then
hold on, what was the plan? I was typing some shit.
So basically they want to do universal pre-K, fund pre-K for every state.
Yeah,
But
okay,
then
but it was they were calling it the Head Start something, Head Start dollars in the bill.
yeah, so
Yeah.
the reality is, and we've talked about this before, is that most of the issues that come from poverty have to do with availability of a parent reading to their kid at an early age. And that starts the trend of never-ending, generational poverty or whatever. But the idea is, and this some of the initiatives we've taken in our own school district here is getting books in houses, getting books in homes, starting kids as early as 3 years old, reading and being around books or just being read to. Like it's really, really important. And so if you can start kids as early as 3 and 4 years old, pre-K, an actual pre-K with curriculum and the whole thing, then they're going to be better off down the road, because by the time that they hit 3rd grade, if they're not up to speed, it's going to be more difficult for them for the rest of their career in high school, in school, and academia, just not being able to read as well as their peers. And so if you can start them early, they're going to be better off. They're going to be more educated. We're going to have a more educated populace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, it's vital. It is a vital thing to have pre-K for every kid in America. But it's not required. So it's, it's kind of whatever. My point is, I have a point. So, but what they had done was they were like, okay, we're going to give they talked it down and negotiated it down where it was like, we're going to fully fund this. And then by the time that they, Manchin and Cinema had their claws in it, it was, yeah, we'll fund it a little bit, but mostly the states are going to have to pay for it. We'll give you a little bit of money, but like 85% of it, the state's going to have to pay for it. So even blue states were like, fuck, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, opt in and follow all these rules, but we're not going to give you any money to do that.
Yeah, so most states were like, well, we're not going to fucking do that. No. So, but again, that's another thing that was widely popular. And the other thing that I really liked, especially for me, because I have, 1,000 kids, is the daycare cost couldn't be more than 7% of your income. Because then they were going to basically subsidize daycare facilities, childcare facilities, to alleviate some of those costs. Because I've looked into it, and the reality is these things aren't that profitable. Like even if you own a daycare, like you have to own multiple daycares in order to be like successful and make a lot of money doing it. They're reporting really, like if you own a daycare, you're only reporting like 60, maybe 70, sometimes $30,000 and $40,000 a year in income. So they're not killing it, except for the people that own chains,
right?
And then they're only paying their employees $10-12 an hour, maybe. Like if you work at a daycare as a teacher and you're in charge of 15 to 20 kids and making $10-12 an hour, that shit's scary, right? How much do you care? How much do you care at $10 or $12 an hour? I've worked jobs where it was $10 an hour. You know how much I cared? None. Like I did security for an extra job one time, and most of the time I spent watching Netflix Like I would watch the cameras, but I'd have my phone in front of the cameras watching Netflix
Well, I mean,
because
you got to stay awake somehow, right?
I was
So,
getting paid $10 an hour. So, uh,
well, and also you were contract security, so you really didn't care if they got robbed or not.
no,
Yeah,
no.
like you're
Like
like, oh, somebody's
I'll
breaking in.
observe and report.
Hey, somebody's breaking in. I'm gonna stay in here.
so, so, anyway, yeah. So that's supposed to be in there. What was the other thing that I really liked that was in there? Um, I don't know. Those were my big ones. Was the daycare, the pre-K, the Medicare expansion. Um, there was a lot,
And
but
and so these are some of the bills that Sanders is looking at doing standalones, like they should have
from what
been.
I understand, he's going to write up these standalone bills because they were all packaged together, and those things in there were wildly popular.
Hmm.
Um, but again, you got to prescription drugs. Obviously, the pharmaceutical company, they how much money they gave fucking Cinema? They gave her like $750,000 to her campaign.
Which one? Is it like
Uh,
Pfizer, or is that all together?
I think just the lobby, like all together, like the pharmaceutical lobby. Um, and I don't know how much they gave Manchin, but I do know that they gave Cinema like 750 grand, like almost $1 million. What do you think she's gonna fucking do? That shit's legal, man. Like that's fucking crazy.
We'll give this
That's
money to your
legal.
foundation. That's cool. We're not actually
Man,
giving
it's
money
just
to you; it's to your foundation, right?
I'm telling you that it baffles, and the only people that can change those laws are them. You think they're gonna change those laws? Fucking no, they're never going to.
There
They're
is another
never going to
way.
change it.
There is another way, but yes, for the most part, it's only them. But there is another way. You could have
You have to have a constitutional amendment,
you'd have to have the Constitutional Convention of States. You'd have to have a convention of state
but
governors
they
to change that rule.
they get paid the same way.
Yes.
Like you think all of a sudden the governor says, okay, we're going to vote on this. We're going to try to ratify a new amendment, right? And then his party comes through and is like, listen,
Nah, bro.
no, we're not. Chill out. And then he's like,
Oh,
my
my
bad.
bad.
Like I just, like I guess that's some of the things that are so disheartening, and it's like,
Well,
and that's why I legit thought about leaving the country. I'm kind of over that now, but there was for like a hot minute, I was looking
very, what's the word I'm looking for?
defeated.
Defeated, despair, yeah, demoralized. That's the word I was looking for. You're very demoralized. I think a lot of that is on purpose.
To
It's the
demoralize
system.
us.
It's the system. You can't fight the system. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't change the system. It is what it is, and there's there's a lot of truth to that because 90, probably a higher percentage, just throwing percentages out there, but like most people are the live and let live, I'm not going to worry about it, it doesn't affect me mindset when it does. And there's nothing I can do about it anyway, right? And so like the system is feeding me, it's keeping a roof over my head, the way that the system works, and so if I upset that, then I can lose those things that the system has helped provide.
Right.
And whether or not that's gainful employment, whether or not that's an EBIT check to feed my family, I don't want to upset that system. And so, it's this constant cycle of following along to get along, to being unhappy, but I don't want to lose it, so I got to follow along to get along. And And until there's some sort of breaking point, and I think we're far away from that still, because like I said,
I don't know, man.
civilization is only ever at any given point eight missed meals away from total anarchy.
Yeah, that's true.
If
That's true.
we have a just-in-time economy where food is delivered to the supermarket days before it's supposed to get purchased or get off the shelves. We don't have warehouses in cities that manage a food supply, right? Like, not to the level that could feed the city. If transportation shut down, it would be anarchy within a matter of days, right?
Yeah. So a 10-day general strike would fuck everyone up.
Right, and it wouldn't even have to be general. You could just do it with the truckers.
Yeah, that's true.
You could just do it with the truckers. If the truckers had a strike for 2 weeks, like, can you imagine?
Dude, if the truckers strike for a week, you'd have people.
You can look up the last time there was a trucker strike. They had a strike, I think, in the 80s as a protest against the rising price of diesel fuel.
Really?
And it was bad. Like, it was not good. They actually had to in like some major cities, they had to waive the requirement for a CDL to move product. They were just like throwing bodies in trucks to move shit.
Wow.
So, yeah, you want to talk about like collapse? Get a trucker strike for 2 weeks and let's see what happens. And it's hilarious because lots of people
they're still
make fun of
throwing
trucks.
bodies in trucks.
Yeah.
I got a buddy that just started a trucking company. He is killing it right now.
Yeah.
Like,
transportation, like if you get in the supply chain right now, if you had a couple $100,000 to throw at buying a truck right now, or a fleet of trucks, if you get a bank loan for $1 million and get 5 trucks, you kill it. Yeah.
He's sitting at about 5 trucks right now.
Yeah.
And hiring drivers left and right to keep the trucks running, like right out of high school. Like, he's just like, whatever. Hey, come get a CDL. I'll train you up. Whatever. I'll put you in it. Like, and pay him, like, he's paying him like $3,000 a trip. Like, just, and right out of high school,
I need you to drive from Austin to Chicago. That's a 2 to 3 day trip.
I'll pay you $3,000. Yeah.
And then you're gonna sleep there overnight in a hotel I'm gonna pay for, and then you're gonna get the next truck and drive it back.
Yep. He is there. He's just like, anybody wants to come drive, come on. And so he's kind of killing it right now, just doing that, like, just making money hand over fist.
Yeah, and awesome. He can afford to pay his drivers $3,000 a pop because the price of transportation is expensive right now. Which brings us back to inflation. So that quote you sent me. Hold on, we're gonna start with this. I gotta
price gouging. You got it to where you can pull it up and it's not on your phone?
It is on my phone, but I had the video pulled up somewhere. Did I close it? I might have closed it. Oh man, did I close that window?
It says it's not inflation when corporations are raking in their highest profit margins in history. It's price gouging.
That's right. That's what the quote said. Take me through that real quick.
What do you mean?
Well, you said, you sent that picture to me and you said this, as though this is self-explanatory.
It's what I've been talking about. It's exactly what I've been talking about. It's the money has been in the system for however long, for as long as, like, as long as the prices have been going up. The money has been there. It's just not been in everyone else's hands. So inflation is an issue because we can't um, we can't afford it anymore. Like we can't afford gas prices to go up. We can't afford whatever, right? We can't afford milk prices to go up because so like you say, shipping right now is at a premium. Trucking is at a premium. You know, you know, um, whatever. We'll just encompass all of that in shipping because that's easier to talk.
Sure.
Easier,
Yeah, and,
you know.
and believe me, it's just as bad on the ocean as it is on land, right? Like
Right.
you're paying a premium for it, right?
So and so because of you can blame regulation, you can blame all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, who sets the prices? The market.
One would argue, yeah. I would say I will charge you as much as I can as you're willing to pay.
Yeah, that's really kind of how much you can pay. But a lot of things. One of the things that I kind of discovered when we had high gas prices the year that Bush went out of office,
Mm-hmm.
like 2007, 2008, when prices got up as high as like $3, $4 a gallon. I don't know if you remember that. You were kind of
Vaguely.
young.
Yeah. It didn't hit where I lived quite that bad. I think we were at like 2008. I think we were up to like $2, and then it went back down pretty quick. I didn't stay there very
It
long.
was higher than that. I don't. It
I
because
don't remember
it
paying
was
$3
it
a
was
gallon in
higher than it
2008.
is right now. Like it got up in some places to $6, $7 a gallon
Yeah.
in America,
Hmm.
right?
I have it all
Not
the
here
time
in
in
Texas.
California. It doesn't happen. It didn't happen south of Houston like that, refining
Right.
and all that other stuff. But
Not here in Texas, but a large portion of America was really expensive. The market can't sustain that, right? So, because then all of a sudden you had a big push for electric vehicles, and then all of a sudden you had a big push to redesign the the efficiency of vehicles. Uh, Trucks. Since then, trucks are getting uh, 28, 29, almost 30 miles to the gallon. Like our dad's truck gets almost 30 miles to the gallon.
yep.
Mine doesn't because I have the biggest V8 there is. Um,
What are we talking about? Inflation,
um,
price gouging,
yeah, price gouging. But
market sustainability, and the 2008 high gas prices. Okay, you were saying that it's unsustainable in the market, and the gas
and the
trucks.
prices dropped and so all of a sudden cars are car companies are like, all right, well, this is where the market's going, this is where we're going to go. um like
Wasn't it?
and
Wasn't
then
it back then? Okay, so hold on. There was more going on in 2000. This was 2008, right?
yeah,
Yeah, 2008, the recession, the bubble popped, the housing crisis. You had oil get up to about $150 a barrel, I believe. I remember that. Okay.
yeah.
Um, wasn't there also like a big explosion in like Saudi Arabia at that point?
No, wasn't there a big explosion here? No, I mean,
Well, in
basically
2008,
we
I
were
don't
at
know when the
war.
marathon plant exploded. There was a big refinery that blew up at south of Houston around then, somewhere on the energy corridor, not the energy corridor, but the Lee City area where all the refineries are. I don't know when that
Oh
marathon
yeah,
plant
yeah, yeah.
explosion was. That was pretty bad too. Um,
But they blamed it on unrest in the Middle East, where they were like, oh yeah, we there's a lot of unrest over here, so prices have to go up. There's nothing we can do. Type shit.
it's 2011. what I was thinking. So yeah, the timing doesn't line up. But unrest in the Middle East, lots of that stuff. I mean, when is there not?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just saying, but that was the excuse they gave us for why prices were so high. But my point is that at some point the market could not sustain the record profits that the oil companies were making.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point in time, I think they were pulling in like hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well, yeah, but
profits.
you got to understand that when something like that happens, when there's a giant price excursion, or in you know, you can see this a lot. It's almost like a gold rush, right? Where this is so valuable, we can get $150 a barrel, right? We have to ramp up production, and a lot of that happened too, right? To take advantage from a business perspective, the influx of fresh money that could be gained and garnered, and that margin between cost of production and resale value, right, or wholesale value, because it was wholesale that was like $150 a barrel, and that didn't last very long. So there was a huge increase in production over the following 6 months from that point in time. You see the same thing happen in my industry. You know, I make plastic for a living, and when shale gas became so cheap, right? Natural gas became so cheap that was the feedstock for most of the plastic that you have in the world. And you know, plants were rushing, businesses were rushing to build new facilities to take advantage of that cheap gas price. So you had massive expansions and operations through all sectors, you know, and you're talking about like ExxonMobil, LyondellBasell. There's a Conoco plant out here that makes plastic. Dow Chemical, BASF. You know, all these companies were building new facilities all over the country to take advantage of the shale gas. And that started back in like 2011, 2012, right? New production. Yeah. And in 2008, you know, a lot of those companies almost went under. You know, I was telling you that the company I work for, this major corporation that's been around for over 100 years almost, almost went completely belly up through bad business decisions made by the CEO and his board. And, well, actually, you know, it was almost the CEO single-handedly, because he went and bought a defunct company and inherited all their debts and responsibilities. Back in, that was like 2007, 2008. And it turned out to be a really bad deal, because right after that happened, the bubble popped and everybody went out, right? So I don't know, like, we talk about inflation, and you know, they always say inflation comes in cycles. What is happening now, I don't think can be pointed to get back to the point of this quote, is you can't point to profits by corporations as an inherent leading factor in the cause of inflation. Are they taking advantage of it? Sure. Yes.
But
is it the cause? No.
So I think there's a yes, in a vacuum, I think you're right. Sure. But the way our economy works is at a structural level, there's not very much competition, right? So you can look at the gas companies, right? There's not very many oil and gas companies out there, right? There's 10 big ones that control the markets. The OPEC or whatever, they control the markets for oil. Who controls food production? Monsanto. Monsanto is this giant fucking conglomerate that controls the food supply, essentially, Like they own most of the farms in the Midwest that produce the food that we distribute to the cities.
Mm.
Um, I think there's a lack of competition. And so you can use the excuse of inflation to raise prices to make better profits. Um, but at the end of the day, it's still like they own everything, so they set the markets. So that's what I'm saying. It's a when you sent me that article, it's a um, cost pool type deal where they're either inflating, deflating the market because they can, because there's no competition, because we have allowed these corporations to get too powerful. And one of the things I've noticed um, that a lot of conservatives right now in America they take issue with when it comes to powerful corporations is they want to talk about like um, um, social media companies, how they have too much power, they can control the discourse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
Mm.
That's true in every industry,
Mm-hmm.
virtually. There are 3 to 5 companies that control the markets in pretty much everything that we do and that we need in our basic needs, right? Um, so um, it's I don't know. That's
You
kind
know
of
what? You know
where
what's
my brain
interesting,
goes on that.
and you'll see this happen a lot down here. You'll, for example, right? A friend of mine in college, his dad worked for small oil and gas companies, right? He was an engineer and he designed drilling systems. That was his job, and he was telling me that his dad always worked for these like small energy companies, places you never heard of, right? And they would start up. He'd work for them for about 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and then they would get noticed by some big dog like an Exxon Mobil or a ConocoPhillips or Texaco or whoever, and they'd get bought out. And when they would get bought out, they would go through and like prune the team and fire people they thought were extra, and then try to hang on to people who were working on ongoing projects. And his dad always wound up being a guy who was in the projects department since he was a designer. And so they would pay him a lot of extra money to like stay on and finish your project, and then we'll try to find you long-term employment. But he'd stay on, take the money, and then go find another small oil company to work for another 3 to 5 years before they got noticed by another big dog and got bought out again. And he had the same thing happen to him like 5 or 6 times over the course of his career, just getting paid boatloads of money by these large companies to stay on and finish the project that he had started at the small company. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they're actively gobbling up their own competition, right? We don't want Cameron Oil, who designs drilling platforms and deep water wells, and they are highly focused, right? Like they sell and they sell products to the oil companies, right? And they're big enough to not get just like bought outright, or their board says no, we're doing fine on our own. But a lot of these smaller companies that could compete.
Why wouldn't you take that money?
Why wouldn't you take that money, right? It's like your homeboy you're talking about with his trucking company. If he builds his fleet up to like 20 rigs, he might get an offer.
Yeah.
And would he be stupid not to take the however many $1 million for his 20 rigs and his customer base to sell that, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, a lot of those things happen, and that happens all day, every day. And twice on Sundays.
But my point is that like antitrust in America has been abandoned.
Yeah, I agree. Yep, I agree.
Like I mean,
Six major.
Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Yep.
Coca-Cola and Pepsi both, they both at the same time, weirdly, oh, freight is up, cost of supply is up, blah, 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 blah. And so they announced they're going to increase prices. And then Pepsi makes another $3 billion in profit, and Coca-Cola makes another 30% up from where they were up in profit. So costs really didn't go up for them, right? It's in their profit margin.
So all the CEOs, the 5 or 6 CEOs that run these sectors are all in cahoots. Is the
That's
problem?
bro.
I don't disagree. Right? What else is Davos?
Absolutely. Huh?
Davos is a meeting of CEOs, right? Like the Bilderberg Group is a meeting of rich CEOs. Are they in cahoots? Probably. What do you do about that?
Antitrust laws. Like you have to break those things up. Like at the end of the day, I mean, think about up until 1980. I don't know if you, and I may have mentioned this on this show before, but up until 1980, they broke up AT&T 5 times because they were getting too big, and they're like, okay, chill, broke them up, got big again, broke them up. Like it happened over and over, and since then, because I remember it as a kid. Like they were like, hey, no, this is not okay, and they broke it down. And then
Citizens United passed.
Yeah, Citizens United passed, Reaganomics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They haven't done any of that. They haven't done any of that. Like then in my memory,
they've like talked about it. They've threatened it. They threatened Windows with it for a while, or Microsoft.
Yeah, but they're not going to do it.
No.
Why would they?
There's too much money.
Getting paid too much money. That was another thing I saw that was interesting.
So, I don't know. I think
I'm just not buying it. At the end of the day, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying like your economic whatever. Like it seems to me like it's bullshit.
Right. Because so I mean, I sent you a thing about like it's either what was it, demand push or cost pull.
Yeah.
Right. Is really the two factors. And so what you're saying, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I'll say this. That this would be a quote unquote cost pull based upon a false circumstance created by the suppliers.
Correct.
Okay. What is one of the other side effects of inflation? It is the decrease in value of debt, right? So if I owe you $100, but my $100 is now the cost of a water bottle, I can just give you the water bottle, right? And then my debt's paid. So if you decrease the value of the dollar, then you're decreasing the value of the debt. Right? And all of these companies create products. Most of the companies you're talking about are manufacturing, right? So they have products that they are selling. So if their debt value decreases based upon the value of the product that they're selling, of course they're going to make more money. Their books are going to look a whole lot better. Because the value of their debt has decreased in comparison to the product that they're manufacturing. So their profit margins are going to look a lot better. Their money, their capital flow is going to look a hell of a lot better because the value of their debt has decreased commensurate with the inflation on the products that they're selling. if you are completely destitute and 100% in debt, right? And you know, your value of your debt, you think about like Weimar Germany, right? You hear the stories about the wheelbarrows full of cash to go buy a loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. If you're in debt for the value of $100,000, but $100,000 can buy you a loaf of bread, and you can acquire a loaf of bread, then you can pay your debt off with a single loaf of bread, yet you had $100,000 in debt. Does that make sense? Like inflation helps debtors.
But the numbers ain't changed.
The number themselves didn't change, right?
Right. So
but the value of the goods has changed.
I understand that, but when you're talking about the numbers specifically, like their debt is X, they produced this, they made this. Mm-hmm. The increase in profit, those numbers haven't changed. That's what I don't understand. It's not like they were going and selling something for, they didn't go and pay off their debt with Coca-Cola products, right? So that's what I don't understand. Like they increased their profit, paid, so forth and so on. The numbers haven't changed. So I guess I don't understand. So like if you had $100,000 in debt, and then I go and I make $200,000 selling bread, I'm net $100,000.
Yeah, you paid off your
percentage.
You have eliminated your debt, and so now, if you can sell another loaf of bread, you now have $300,000, right?
No, I would now have $200,000.
You have tripled your value because you no longer carry the debt in your balance.
I would now have $200,000 because I had to pay off the debt.
Right. Okay. So you said $100,000 in debt. You sell the loaf of bread for $200,000, right?
No, I had 2 loaves of bread. So 2
Whatever. I'm just trying to get into your analogy and understand what you're saying.
Okay, 2 loaves of bread.
Okay, so you have 2 loaves of bread. How much are you selling the bread for?
I sold one to pay off the debt, and I sold the next one to have some money.
Right. If that's where your story ends and you have no more loaves of bread, you are like you're completely out of the hole. You're debt free now, right? So everything after that is pure profit.
Okay.
So you have increased your value by $100,000. You've increased your value by $200,000 because you're no longer in debt. And most of these major companies carry a ton of debt, right? Like if you're a Coca-Cola, right, and you want to build a new manufacturing plant, you don't pay capital for that crap. Right. You might buy capital parts because that's how you have to do it for tax reasons. But to build your plant, you're going to take out a loan. You're going to take out a loan from a massive institution, and then you're going to finance the construction of your facility. So now you've taken out $1 billion in debt, or whatever that is, right? Mm-hmm. But now the value of the Coca-Cola that you're producing is you can charge more for it. Now, like you said, the number didn't change, but the value of what you're selling did. So the number of your debt is still $1 billion, but because you're selling each individual unit of Coca-Cola you produce for more money, the effect of your $1 billion debt is less. Right? So of course the companies that are carrying huge amounts of debt are showing record profits on their books because they're still making product.
Right, and prices have increased. Costs have not.
That's the false statement right there. Costs have not.
It sounds like horseshit to me. Like again, your
homeboy can pay people $3,000 a trip, and you're going to tell me costs haven't increased?
This was before inflation, or before Joe Biden took office. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm assuming he's still doing well.
Yeah, he just bought another truck. Yeah, he's doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing all right. Right. So his costs.
But I'm saying like
he's still making money, right? He's still providing a service to move the product, to do the things, and so he is able to pay his people more. But to pay his people more, he has to charge more.
Does he? Or is
I mean, if he wants to
I
keep
guess.
growing his business, yeah. If he wants to buy another rig, he's got to have a profit margin somewhere.
So what you're saying is, he, whether or not it costs more for him to do business, he's got to charge more because he can. Because
Whether or
of
not
inflation.
hold on, say that again. Whether or not it costs more,
He can charge more.
Yes.
So regardless of cost, he gets to charge more because of other people. So supply and demand. But again, he's a small time guy. So now think about that on a bigger scale. Regardless of cost, you can say whatever you want, right? So like Monsanto in particular, they control the country's food. Okay? Like on a large scale. Like they are the main company that controls the entire food supply for the North American continent.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just say, well, the shipping is really expensive right now, we're just going to have to increase prices on.
Let me ask you a question.
And then
can Monsanto plant whatever they want on their land?
I don't know. I'm sure. Yeah.
No. The answer is no. They cannot plant whatever they want on their land. There is a specific Department of Agriculture like growth plan they have to follow to make sure they don't kill the soil, and that actually occurred back when the that was enacted after the Dust Bowl that started the Great Depression, because they figured out that when they let farmers plant and grow whatever the hell they wanted, they had all the farmers in the South that were trying to make money off the cotton, and it stripped out the soil. So every now and then, they have to plant what they're told.
So weird because, and I know here, yeah, there are a lot of cotton, but also, like, there are two growing seasons. Cotton generally is a second season.
It's a winter season crop, right?
Yeah. And then like corn and stuff like the maize and wheat.
Yeah. I don't know the particulars of it,
season.
But the only reason I know that is a friend of mine in high school, his dad worked for the Department of Agriculture, and that was his job, was to, make sure that the people were growing, they were rotating their crops, essentially. If they weren't rotating their crops, then they got fined and they didn't get their money or whatever. Let me put this right here. That'll help. Yeah, that's better. And so like the idea that you talk about regulation a lot. Like the farming and agriculture is one of the most highly regulated and also one of the most heavily subsidized markets we have. And a lot of that justification comes into because they force farmers to rotate the crops, then they have to, they're basically, they're subsidizing the years that they're being forced to produce the non-profitable crops, essentially, to keep them on that rotation. It's kind of a give and take in that sense. So I get what you're saying, that they're just charging more to make more money. But I think it's way more complex than that. And the idea that a business isn't going to try and make money, I mean, that's silly. That's what businesses do, I think. Now, you talked about, and one thing I think we can agree on is that it should be like corporations are going to corporate, right? They're going to be corporations. They're going to try and make as much money as they possibly can. They're going to try and maximize their profits. That's what they do. That is literally in their, shareholder agreement, right? Their job is to make money for the shareholders. Period. The problem is that it should be the politician's job to protect the consumers from that thing, because corporations are going to be corporations. You can't count on an entity ruled by a bunch of people who may or may not be sociopaths at the executive level, to do the right thing, right?
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point, because at the end of the day, inflation, all of this that's going on is a symptom of the bigger issue of consolidation of the economy, consolidation of power, which is a handful of a few corporations that run everything.
Yeah.
And if you guys, if conservatives will just look at what they hate about social media companies, big tech, quote unquote, and apply that to everything, then I think we might have something.
Yeah.
But until your team gets off of, well, and my team too, because fucking Democrats are just as bad. They're just Republican light. But until they get off that corporate teat, it's not gonna change. Like, they're not gonna start breaking up these companies. They're not gonna aggressively use the antitrust law that we have on the books.
I think you're right on the money. I think you're right on the money. It's you can't point to the problems in this economy and say that it wasn't, some of it at least wasn't on purpose. I think you're right on the money on that. I'm just saying it's more complex than somebody's raising the price. Like, it takes a lot of factors to drive an entire market to inflation, right? You have to affect a lot of different sectors.
But like you've said, anytime there's a trucking issue, a gas issue, or a shipping issue, that affects everything.
Yeah.
So if the truckers went on strike for more money, all of a sudden now you're assed out, right? Everything is going to cost more money. So if you start with oil affects everything, which is why people are like, oh, we got to get off of big oil, because it affects literally everything, especially when the price market isn't controlled from here. So
and you've disagreed with me on this, but I think the United States has a lot more levers than you give us credit for. I think that it has been 100% mismanaged.
Okay.
In the current administration, I think the Secretary of Transportation is more worried about doing his documentary biopic than actually running the transportation in this country. It's been. I read an article. It was from a shipping magazine. I forget what the title was, but it was a shipping transportation magazine. Periodical that they put out for like merchant marine captains or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it was like, look, we haven't really had a transportation secretary that understood the merchant system since like the early 90s, with like Bush Sr. was the last person who had a transportation secretary who actually understood the merchant marine. He was in the merchant marine business. After that you had Clinton, you had Bush Sr., you had
all of those positions are just for people that have donated to the campaign, that wanted a position of power, that did the right things, said the right things, somebody that had to appease,
patted the right back.
Right. And like DeVos being the Secretary of Education with zero qualifications of being the Secretary of Education. You know what I mean? Or the head of the Department of Education, whatever she was, whatever her title was. But she had no fucking business doing that. But she donated the right amount of money, talked to the right people. She was in the right circles, and then
had the right connections. Job. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete needed a job because they talked him into getting out of the race, essentially, because he was pulling
Hey,
votes
we'll
from
put you in the
Biden.
cabinet,
Bernie
but
was going to win, right?
uh,
So Bernie was going to fucking win if Pete doesn't drop out. Let's be 100. Like, Bernie would have won if Pete didn't drop out and pull votes from Biden. But they had to get him out. Otherwise, he would have pulled those votes. And so they had to give him a job.
yeah, yeah, and he is doing a terrible job of it.
But I think a lot of those cabinet positions where they're supposed to be in charge of stuff go to unqualified people just because that's what they have to have. They to be president or to have that job, you have to do all the right things. You got to pay off the right people. You got to, I don't know, man. It's all fucked up. Anyway, it's about that time. I've got to go rejoin my family. Okay. New Year's resolutions. It's January 2nd. Do you have any?
I am gonna rehang my heavy bag, which has been sitting in the garage for like 2 years, and get back on that. Because all my shirts are getting way too tight. The only ones I have like 10 shirts that I wear on a routine basis right now, and I would like to wear my t-shirts again. So I've got to get back to working out more regularly, and not eating like a fucking pig all the time. So now that the holidays are over and all the cake has been eaten and lemon bars have been eaten. Actually, I gotta go eat that lemon bar that's in the fridge right now. It's calling my name. That's what I got. What you got?
I just want to pay down some debt, and also, the kids got bicycles, so I'm kind of hoping for me to be able to get on my bicycle a little bit more
And ride it 5 miles an hour with the kids.
Yeah, it's something.
It's something. That's all it is. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's something. So
good.
I gotta do this thing. I gotta lose some weight.
Your son, your eldest son, told me his resolution was to be cooler this year, and I asked him what's his measure of success, and he didn't really have an answer for me. And I was like, well, you need to think about that. Like, I just want to be cooler this year.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Does that mean you're going to, you know what?
Got himself a little girlfriend.
I did.
It's kind of weird, but
he showed me a picture of his little girlfriend. She's cute.
Yeah. She's kind of a weird duck, but that's all right.
So is your son.
Yeah. So is my son. It's facts. It's facts.
I heard he did get his promotion though. So finally, after being abused for a long time,
he's still getting abused. He worked Christmas Day.
He did. He did.
But I think he's about to actually get some time off. He's about to come back up.
He said he was coming north.
Like almost a full week. He's gonna come up and stay. So nice. He's got some well-deserved time off because he didn't get to come home for Thanksgiving or Christmas because he was working. At Thanksgiving, I was like, "Quit your job, quit your job,
do it, quit." We'll see.
But
see what happens.
He got the raise and he got the promotion, so he's all appeased for now.
He stayed. He was supposed to be home. We were playing dominoes New Year's Eve, of course, and I think we were supposed to get off at 8, and he didn't show up till like 9:30. And we were like, "What happened?" And he's like, "Oh, I had to stay and do all the paperwork." It's like, that sucks.
Yeah, hence the promotion. I wonder if he got paid for that extra hour.
I hope so. Hour and a half or whatever. Hour, yeah.
Mother effers.
That's the real. It's like I was telling somebody, it's like I hate working overtime because I don't get paid for it because I'm strictly salary, and it's supposed to be baked into my salary already. So for me to make an extra dime, I have to work 12-hour days for almost 13 days straight. Which is the turnaround. Like, that happens annually. We do that every year.
Yeah,
So,
I do that all the time too, but I don't get paid any extra dollars for it.
Yeah. But your football season, so.
Right, and then I just had 2 weeks off, so that's another reason why I look like this, because I've been sleeping until 10 or 11 every single day, and starting tomorrow, I'm gonna start getting back up at 6.
Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Reese and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.